Okay, so 2-2, point, unbeaten run goes on. That sounds really positive. However, it isn't as positive as it sounds, Steve, because I've seen people now describe this as like, well, I don't know, one of the worst unbeaten runs in sporting history, which might be hyperbolic, but still, it's a conversation that exists. The next conversation really for me is where do we go from here? Because we've all spoke for the last half an hour or so about where this Liverpool team's at and what it can and can't do, predominantly can't. And I think one of the most damning indictments of this Liverpool team actually is the fact that we are now 9 games unbeaten. So we have stopped that bleeding, as we made mention of, but it's still at crucial points in football matches looks like a team that's crippled by fear, which you said earlier on, a lot of that's to do with the players, and the players can only take you so far. At some point, you have to look for inspiration from somewhere else. And it doesn't seem to be coming. And if it is coming, it's certainly not reflecting in the performances.
I'd like to think it's coming. I don't have any evidence to suggest that's coming anytime soon. I think the big thing for all the Reds is that we seem to lack an identity. And I said upstairs before we came on, I used to sort of pour scorn on the Spurs and West Ham fans saying, we want to play it the West Ham way or the Tottenham way, but we're not playing the Liverpool way. So I kind of get it a little bit more now. You could get a notepad and sit down with Arne Slot. There's a list of things. You can go from tactics, substitutions, players' performances. All of those things circle right back round to the manager's door. Now, I've always been consistent in the thing that anything to do with the players, the squad, the tactics, personalities, the morale, the confidence is a manager's job. That's why he gets paid the big bucks to do those. Whether he signed the players or not, he's a manager of a football team and he signed up to say, I will bend and shape this squad, make it all the things it needs to be. I will give it a system. Because football is the most systemic thing ever, even more so this year than previous years. We don't have one. We are a moments. We've developed into a moments team, and I hate that phrase because that's the criticism we've been levelling at Manchester United for years. The difference is we're not creating moments, so it's really ugly to watch. It's really, really hard to watch at the moment, and you know, God bless those people that travel all the way down to Fulham to watch performances like that. And we've not been great at any of the long distance trips, have we, for the travelling cop? Where do we start? Well, self-confidence is a major issue. We've been through that. Tactically, I can't see what we're trying to do. I can't give you a game plan. What we're trying to do at the moment is find a way for Florian Wirtz to win us a game of football. And we go back to that moments thing, and you know, AKA Bruno Fernandes type of thing with Man United, where let's try and get the one guy who's got the quality on the pitch to do something. Yeah, a bit of magic while we win a game. Brilliant. We've gone from being a team last season that took what Klopp did, added a little bit of control, and then saw out football matches and won games, to a team that really doesn't have an understanding what we're trying to achieve on the pitch. And I'm quite analytical from a tactical point of view. A little bit of knowledge is dangerous because I've been a semi-pro manager and stuff in the past, but I do look at the games and I do try and read what we're trying to do and B, what the opposition are trying to do. And I'm left dumbfounded by what it is. What is our tactic? Can anyone in here tell me what we're trying to achieve on the football pitch? We are. And this sounds super critical, and maybe it is a little bit. We are going through the motions. 90 minutes of going through the motions. There's no standout leader out there that's saying, right, enough. You know, Henderson's name has been mentioned a couple of times over the weekend. He would not preside over games of football like that. He would have been all over everybody. Get your notepad out, sit down, write out what your problems are. And Cody Gakpo and Mo Salah are not top of that list. The top of that list is finding a shape that works. There's people calling out for us to go and buy quick, super fast wingers. You can't play super fast wingers at number 10 and a number 9 if you don't trust your centre midfielder. At the moment, we spoke about Alexis McAllister. Yeah. You can't trust Alexis McAllister physically at the moment. What a player. What an absolute baller that guy is, but something's missing. So you can't trust him, and whilst Gravenberch is superb at taking the ball off the back four, dropping the shoulder, creating space and then giving the ball to somebody else, he's not Fabinho, he's not going to put fires out, he's not physically that guy. So go and put 4 or 5 attack-minded players on the pitch, but don't expect the 2 lads who are sitting in midfield to stop it when it breaks down, because that isn't happening. So the bigger issue is, can't go 4-3-3 for me with the squad we've got. You just can't do it because you can't get the bodies in the midfield that you need. For me, it's a 4-2-4 with a diamond is also scary because you can't play Gravenberch or McAllister at the base of your midfield because they can't do that job. So 4-2-4 seems to be the way to go. And if I was picking two to go in there, and I'm speaking a lot, but
absolutely, go for it 100%.
If you can 4-2-4, your two in the middle have to be Szoboszlai and Gravenberch, because they'll give you ability to look after a ball. Szoboszlai will give you the athleticism, and he might need to change the way he plays to do that. And both of the guys need to have the reins taken off them a little bit, because I love that Gravenberch got into the box and scored a worldy volley against Everton. I love that, and I'm here for that. But fundamentally, he's playing at the base of our midfield. And we need to remember that the base of that midfield is protecting the back four. And at the moment, fair score yesterday, our two centre-backs are strangers at times in terms of the positional starting position. So that's my sort of piece on it over. I just think there's a notepad and there's a list of things to do, and singling out individual players is not the solution.
No, listen, 100% here to all of that. And the problems are plentiful. And it's crazy to think like that in a way, Ben, because again, we are now 9 games unbeaten, but it's all still a bit bleak. And the fallout from it is questions being asked of players individually, collectively, and indeed the manager. And I don't think any of it's off the table, if you like. And there are extenuating circumstances when it comes to the manager and what he has at his disposal in terms of who he can select. But ultimately, I think there's enough in that squad to get a better tune out of, you know, the team, and we're just not seeing it right now. And again, there's moments in time in the game whereby I think we seem to have got a grasp and a handle of what we need to be doing, and yet for whatever reason it just seems to stop. And that's what, again, I'll come back to, we mentioned it earlier on, but the crisis and the confidence actually, because Steve loosely referenced it there, but to be 9 games before yesterday, 8 games unbeaten, and still look so brittle and fragile, at some point you do have to start questioning the manager and just how much belief is he giving, because he's clearly a very good coach, and I'm not really questioning his ability. I'm not advocating for anything when it comes to Arne Slot, actually, to be honest, but you have to wonder why he can't get the best out of this group. And sort of once he seems to have them on the right path, why do we suddenly veer off it? Because it doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, I'd fully agree with that. I think Arne Slot has made a lot of mistakes, I think, in terms of this season, with a lot of, obviously, the setup and a lot of with the players. I think, as Steve was saying, especially with the Gravenberch thing, I think as a 6, your first job is to protect the back four, really. And I think I saw a quote, and I thought it summed it up quite well from Arne Slot. I think it was from yesterday. And I think he said something like, if I could play with 10 forwards, then I'd play with 10 forwards.
Don't believe it.
And I think that really sums it up this season, where it's not about the balance of a team where we're trying to play as a squad and trying to win games. It's a lot of, oh, he's good, I'll pull him up front. Oh, I want him up front. I want him in the team like this. And I want everyone total football going forwards. But I don't think it's working, and I don't think he's changing it. Would be my thoughts on that, to be honest. And I think especially when any time we've got, I mean, maybe we're drawing 1-1 or we're losing, he just throws on basically every forward we've got and just forgets about balance. And that's fine at points, but I think there's got to be thoughts about balance and such like that. And I think going back to the overall sort of form, I thought maybe we turned the tide a little bit. I thought, okay, you know, we played really bad. He settled it now. Okay, we're going to go on and run a bit here. And we have gone on a run. But I think after the Wolves game, and especially after this game, I'm really struggling to be convinced, to be honest, with us. And I just don't think it's turned around.
No, well, listen, I think you're not alone in those thoughts. Far from it, actually. You only got to look at Twitter once for 4.5 seconds to realise that you're absolutely not on your own there. And yeah, it's difficult. I want to spin off in terms of what Ben said there. I'll come to you, Steve, on it, in terms of, you mentioned Ryan Gravenberch and this newfound freedom that he appeared to have, but I actually think that could go to a wider conversation about what Arne Slot wants us to be, because I know Sam was in the studio this week saying Arne Slot doesn't want us to play like this. Why would he? And I get that, obviously, because people are using words such as boring, sterile, etc., etc., etc. Passive has been thrown around, and understandably so, given the way we're playing. But what do you therefore, and you said there you don't believe what he said yesterday about having 10 forwards on the pitch, and I'm inclined to agree with you. But in terms of his brand, style of football, philosophy, it's all off right now. Let's get out there straight away. But what do you see his vision as being? Because it isn't this on the pitch right now, clearly, but what is it?
I don't think he's got the clear sight of what his vision is. That's why we see all these changes, and the point you made about bringing attacking-minded players on because you've got to throw the kitchen sink at it because you're in a hole and you're trying to get out of it. We recruited him because Feyenoord were closest to Liverpool in terms of intense press, win the ball back in high areas. I think they were second only to Klopp in Europe at the time. So it was like, let's bring him in because he's not going to rip it up and start again and change the world. And we've got a great squad and wow, that's hindsight is an amazing thing. But we then go and win the league doing all of those things. And what he did was he took a little bit of the Klopp thing, which is be brave, take risks. He took a little bit of that out of the side, gave us a little bit more control, and we went and won the league at a canter. At the time, I thought the way we ended the league was going to provide us problems going forward, and I stand by that. You can't not turn up for the last 5 games. I said earlier in the show that winning is a habit and so is losing, and we didn't win for 5 games at the end of the season when we really should have rubbed everybody's nose in it and said, we're the standard bearers, this is us, see you next season, see what you can do. What we did say to people was, actually sometimes when we can't be arsed, we're not at the races. So we recruit this manager to do all the things that Klopp did and make Liverpool a sort of, not a Klopp regen, but along the lines of, so there wasn't major structural changes needed. And then somebody in a football club thought, you know what, we can sign all these attack-minded players and just run away with the league. We'll just beat people with attacking football. I think if you sat down with him and said, that's what we're going to do, he might have said, whoa, hold your horses a minute. That's not what I do. That's not what not an overly pragmatic manager, but I am a pragmatic manager. There are very, very few wholehearted front foot managers in football today because systems rule everything, and that's front foot football with that amount of attacking bodies on the pitch is often off the cuff. There was a passage of play last season where they played 3 little give and goes around the box, and in the press conference he said, that's not me, that's the players. Fair play to him for admitting that. You can't let them do that for 90 minutes. You have to give them a structure and you have to give them a system. I don't think he's probably 100% happy with all the players that he got in terms of how do you use them rather than who they are and the quality they bring to the squad. I don't think a defensively minded manager that wins a ball through press and high intensity is necessarily comfortable with having all these players and saying, right, now go and be like Kevin Keegan's Newcastle and just take games away from people. I think he looks at it. I think Florian Wirtz, as good as he is, creates him a massive problem as where do you fit him in? Realistically, you'd sit him in behind a number 9 and have 2 good guys out wide, and you'd know that your 2, back to the midfield conversation, you'd know your 2 when it breaks down can protect you, but they're not doing that. So redefine people's positions, certainly redefine defensive responsibilities, make it a double pivot as opposed to one stays and one goes, because you sometimes get caught between 2 stalls and then you're in all kinds of trouble. So I'm not slot out, and I'm not slot in. I am Liverpool Football Club through and through, and it's about winning trophies, it's about being competitive, and it's about games of football where we go there and go, that's my team. I don't recognise what I'm seeing on the pitch at the moment. I'm pretty sure Arne Slot doesn't either.
100%. All of that. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Could not agree anymore with everything you said there, to be honest with you, wholeheartedly. And it's interesting, actually, just to spin off and touch upon a couple of points you made. The bravery stuff, I think, is fascinating. And it reminded me of something Arne Slot said way back, almost when he first arrived. I think it was his first pre-season over in America, about percentage passing. And it might have been around Trent, forgive me, I might be misinformed in my own mind about that. But he said, you're right, play the easier, more obvious. Don't risk something. He's quite risk averse, I think, generally speaking, just as a manager. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that now, especially when games are on a knife edge. We just seem to go in ourselves and really sort of be wary of what might or might not work. And there's some players on that pitch who are wonderfully gifted. Florian Wirtz, the case in point, he should be allowed to go and express himself and have that freedom. I think we're seeing glimpses of it, but nowhere near enough. And actually, you're one of the few people, and forgive me for the name drop here, but it's coming anyway, so I don't really care. I'm relatively close with Sammy Lee, I think, as you know. And he and you are now the 2 people who've said to me about how furious they were with the end of last season. Not many people, everyone just kind of laughed it off and went, oh, whatever, we've thrown in the towel on the beach, quite literally.
Sammy Lee played with Graham Souness, they've had them all up against the wall.
Well, I think that, I'd hate to say this, but you've kind of allowed me to now. It's a bit of an old school mentality, but my word, is it an accurate one? You know what I mean? And so the fact that we did just take our eye off the ball, and I'm sure Arne Slot would push back on that, but the way we ended that season, post winning the league, was absolutely, feet up. relax, don't worry about it. And as you said there, it would have been nice to rub people's nose in a little bit. And maybe it has trickled into this season, potentially. Who knows?
That was a clip from the Final Word show. If you'd like to check out the full show, head on over to redmenplus.com.